The term "what if" is often brought up when talking about the past. Many drivers saw their time on Earth get tragically cut short, whether it be at a time where they were already a star, while even some before they truly got to show their true talents on the track. Ride quality is sometimes debated, leaving some to wonder what a driver could have done with a better opportunity. Injuries have always been a huge part of the sport. As the years have passed by, NASCAR has implemented safety improvements along the way, keeping drivers in their cars and off the sidelines as much as possible. It still has left fans wondering if their favorite driver could have become immortal and captured that elusive Winston Cup while sitting there knowing injuries changed the outcome during a championship battle. In the mid 1990s, two drivers in particular saw their career trajectories hampered by multiple injuries. The parallels between their two careers run deeper than injuries or the what could have been. Both hailed from the northeastern portion of the United States. Both used success in another series as a stepping stone. The duo arrived in the Winston Cup Series as a rookie around 30 years old, and unfortunately, both saw success sidetracked by injuries.
Newburgh, Maine's Ricky Craven finished second in the Busch Grand National Series standings in both 1993 and 1994. His two wins in 1994 left him 46 points short of the eventual series champion David Green. Craven's Busch Series success led him to being named the driver of Larry Hendrick's number 41 Chevrolet in the Winston Cup Series for 1995. The team's driver for the 1994 season, Joe Nemechek, asked for and was granted his release. Craven actually had multiple Winston Cup Series offers for the 1994 season, but turned them down because he wanted more experience. He talked about this at Charlotte in 1994. Last year, even though the opportunities were there, I truly felt as I wasn't ready for Winston Cup. I wasn't ready for the bigger cars. I wasn't ready for the bigger cars at the Talladegas, the Daytonas, at Michigan, and Atlanta. He cited a message he received from a director of the American-Canadian Tour as something that changed his outlook on racing. He said, "You're going to be the guy who wins 500 races in your career and never wins a championship." I decided to take control of things after that.
It paid off. The same weekend that the rumors started to spread about Craven and Hendrick teaming up, Charlotte Motor Speedway president Humpy Wheeler proclaimed Craven to be the most underrated driver in NASCAR, as Wheeler marveled at Craven's masterful techniques of taking care of his equipment. On and off the track, he's wise far beyond his years, he said, and of course, he's a winner. Craven's 2-year deal with Hendrick was officially announced at the start of November of 1994. The numbered 41 saw its best season to date in 1994 with Nemechek, finishing 27th in points and notching the team's best career finish with a third at Pocono. Craven started out the season with back-to-back 16th place finishes in 1995 before a few mechanical issues struck the team over the next few races. The team's streaky success and failures seemed to be the trend of 1995, as Ricky finished the season 24th in points. He beat out Robert Presley for the Rookie of the Year honors and set the team's record with 4 top 10 finishes. Craven put the Winston Cup Series on notice in 1996. After a solid 13th place finish in the Daytona 500, Craven finished a career-best third at Rockingham. He finished 17th and 12th over the next 2 races before notching 3 straight top 10 finishes, including another third. He found himself 4th in the Winston Cup point standings after the season's first 7 races, and he managed to back that up with a pole at Martinsville. Another respectable 12th place finish left Craven as the only driver to finish in the top 20 in all 8 races. This put the number 41 bunch 4th in points, 102 behind series leader Dale Earnhardt as the Cup cars took the trek to Talladega.
Unfortunately, all the momentum and success that Craven had achieved at this point was washed away in one moment. A multi-car accident resulted in Craven being airlifted to Caraway Methodist Medical Center in Birmingham, Alabama, where it was confirmed that he sustained a minor compression fracture of the third thoracic vertebrae, a bruised lung, an abrasion on his elbow, and a swollen eye. Craven actually had Jimmy Horton to thank for keeping him inside the racetrack. Horton's 1993 crash at Talladega, which saw his car fly over the fence and down an embankment, led the track to erect a catch fence. After the accident, Craven talked about it with reporters. "I know I blacked out before it ended. The only part that hurt was when we landed on the apron. There were no tires or suspension left on the car, so it was just the chassis and the frame. He mentioned that he was watching highlights of the race on the television in his hospital room and said he felt sorry for the poor driver in the accident before coming to the realization that it had been him. The team tapped Ron Hornaday Jr. as a relief driver for the following weekend's race at Sears Point Raceway. The plan was to have Hornaday, a NASCAR Super Truck Series standout, to take over for Craven after one lap. Hornaday, who qualified the car for Craven on Friday, flew to Portland on Saturday for the Truck Series race, where he ended in victory lane. It might have been hard to watch, but the success of the number 41 car carried over to Hornaday as he qualified third, just behind Terry Labonte and Ricky Rudd. Hornaday actually bested the previous track record set by Ricky Rudd in 1995. Hornaday's team owner, Dale Earnhardt, hopped in Craven's number 41 Kodiak Chevrolet on Saturday at Sears Point to shake the car down during happy hour. Craven's biggest struggle was knowing he would have to let Hornaday drive his car after getting off to such a great start in the point standings.
One bright spot to the weekend was that Craven was named the first quarter nominee for the NASCAR True Value Man of the Year award, which highlights on-track success and off-track community service and charity work. Craven, who had to start at the back of the field after the driver change, brought his car to the pits to have Hornaday take over. Hornaday blazed out of the pits in just enough time to stay on the lead lap. In the pits after the driver change, Craven mentioned how hard it was to crawl out of the car, but said how thankful he was to have a great driver like Hornaday take over. Hornaday eventually finished 31st after a late spin, which only dropped Craven to 8th in the standings. Luckily for Craven's recovery, the next points-paying race came 3 weeks later following an off week and the annual running of the Winston. Craven was originally scheduled to compete during the off weekend, with the Busch Grand National and Busch North Series stars racing at New Hampshire, but skipped the weekend to continue to recover from his injuries. He did appear at the track and sign autographs on Friday before the races were postponed due to rain. More good news came Craven's way at Charlotte as the team announced that Kodiak agreed to sponsor the car through the 1998 season. It was a busy week for agreements as Rick Hendrick announced all 3 of his drivers and sponsors were locked up through the 2000 season. This included Jeff Gordon, crew chief Ray Evernham and their sponsor DuPont, Terry Labonte and his sponsor Kellogg's, and Ken Schrader and his sponsor Budweiser. He used the Winston Select Open as a test session to see if he was ready to go the full 600 miles the following week at Charlotte. Despite finishing 23rd, he deemed himself ready. He picked up right where he left off, qualifying his number 41 car second right behind pole sitter Jeff Gordon.
During the 600 broadcast, Ken Squire mentioned that Craven told him he's been sleeping in 20-minute periods to get up and stretch because he did not want to take medication for his injuries. Craven's terrible luck in May continued as he was involved in a terrifying crash with Johnny Benson on lap 195. Benson spun and slid down the track towards the apron as Craven came by and slammed into the side of the number 30 car, spewing debris in the air like fireworks and shearing the entire side off of the number 41. Craven was able to walk to the ambulance and was checked at the infield care center before being transported to a local hospital for a precautionary neck x-ray. It eventually came back negative and he was released from the hospital. Benson, on the other hand, needed assistance getting out of his car and was held in the infield care center for observation before being released. On the TV broadcast, Randy Pemberton mentioned Benson would be alright and the only injury he suffered was some pretty bent-up glasses. The accident sent Craven home with a disappointing 37th place finish, dropping him to 11th in the standings. His May struggles unfortunately followed him through the summer months. Craven finished 18th or worse in 9 of the next 11 races. His best finish, a 14th, came at Dover, which was the first of those 11 races. The final race of the stretch saw Craven battling for a top 10 at Bristol before contact with Bobby Hamilton relegated him to a 21st place finish.
His lone highlight during the summer was a pole run at his home track in New Hampshire. It was his second pole of the season, with both coming in the same car. He led one lap but finished 26th. That same weekend, it was announced that Craven had become part owner of the number 41 alongside Larry Hendrick. Craven talked about some of their struggles with the media in August. "We lost our best car and we don't have the resources to duplicate it. We don't have the manpower or resources to finish it this year. You've got to be careful not to use your 1997 budget at the end of 1996, Craven said. Ironically, as Craven was talking about 1997, rumors started to spread about his future with the team. 2 weeks before his name came up in those rumors, it came out that Ken Schrader was on his way out from Rick Hendrick's team and was on the verge of joining the number 33 team, which was soon to be purchased by Andy Petrie. Craven was viewed as the leading candidate to take over the number 25 Budweiser Chevrolet for Rick Hendrick. There was also a chance Craven could have been looked at as the driver for Hendrick's new fourth team, an associate team run by Jay Fry and sponsored by Mars Skittles brand. Fry's team, which was dubbed the Myrtle Beach team, was also an option for Schrader if he didn't want to stay in the 25 car. Despite the earlier announcement that Craven had become the half owner of the number 41, it was noted that an agreement never was signed and would not hamper anything. According to Ben W. Blake of the Richmond Times-Dispatch, rumors were rampant that Hendrick and DuPont, which sponsored Craven in the Busch Grand National Series, somehow stashed Craven with another Chevrolet team until he had room to bring him over on his own team.
Craven finished 42nd at Darlington after a blown engine and 28th at Richmond before more information about his future came out. In a New Hampshire Union Leader article by Kevin Provencher, it was mentioned that sources claimed Craven was Anheuser-Busch's first choice, but he was not the first choice of Rick Hendrick. If it was up to Hendrick, Ward Burton would have drove the number 25 car in 1997, but Anheuser-Busch nixed the idea. Hendrick confirmed that Craven had approached him about leaving his contract to join Hendrick in 1997, but also mentioned that a clause in their contract required liquidation damages. A few weeks later, it was announced that former Busch Grand National Series champion Steve Grissom would take over the number 41 car in 1997, paving the way for Craven to move to the number 25. The following weekend, Craven's 1997 plans were confirmed as he was announced as the driver of the number 25 Budweiser Chevrolet. This is an opportunity most drivers only wish for. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. I'm going to be part of a team made up of two of the greatest drivers in Winston Cup history, Craven said about his new teammates, one of his close friends, Jeff Gordon, and Terry Labonte. Gordon won the Winston Cup title in 1995, and Labonte would eventually win the title in 1996, edging his teammate Gordon in the process. The excitement stemming from Craven's future seemed to translate over to the track, as Craven finished 5th at Charlotte, which was his first top 10 since the 7th race of the season. He ended his tenure with Hendrick with 3 more disappointing finishes, winding up 20th in the Winston Cup standings. He bested all of his marks he set during his rookie season, but was left to wonder what could have happened had he not been injured at Talladega, which seemingly changed the entire trajectory of the season. Now, Craven put his struggles in the rearview mirror and hoped a change of scenery and an opportunity of a lifetime would be able to help him find victory lane in the Cup Series for the first time.
Craven's opportunity of a lifetime got off to a rough start, as in late January his new car owner Rick Hendrick announced that he was diagnosed with a rare but treatable form of leukemia. He would start chemotherapy the following week and continue with the treatments for the next 6 months, keeping him away from the track in the process. It's extremely unfortunate and difficult to understand why Rick has had this kind of misfortune. I'll give him every ounce of my support and in any way I can, like he has always done for me, Craven said. A cancer diagnosis to someone close to Craven wasn't something new, as his mother Nancy had a bone marrow transplant in the mid-1980s. She had a bone marrow transplant and it was the most difficult time of my life, he said. That toughened me up. I had to prepare for the worst. She recovered great and is doing fine. The season seemed like it couldn't have started out worse for Craven. He took blame for a multi-car pileup during the second Gatorade Twin 125 qualifying event, forcing the number 25 car to make the Daytona 500 field based off of their 1996 points earned by Ken Schrader. This left Craven with a 40th starting spot in the 500, a long way back from Steve Grissom and Craven's number 41 bunch who qualified second. All of the tough times during the start of 1997 faded away in one instant as Hendrick's 3 cars, Gordon, Labonte, and Craven, finished 1, 2, 3 in the Daytona 500, the trio drafted by Bill Elliott on lap 195 of 200. The yellow waved the following lap, following contact with Johnny Benson and Bobby Hamilton, as the race ended under yellow. I don't think it's sunk in yet, but this is the best medicine the good Lord could have given me, Hendrick later said from his home.
The number 25 team saw an internal change after the 500 as 26-year-old mechanic Andy Graves was named the team's crew chief, replacing Phil Hammer, who stayed with the team in another capacity. Graves, who was the youngest crew chief in the Cup Series, now had connections to all 3 Hendrick teams. He previously was a roommate to Gordon and was on Labonte's team in 1994. Craven backed up his stellar run in the Daytona 500 with a 5th-place finish at Rockingham. He left there second in the standings, 40 points behind Gordon, who had won both races. He recovered from a practice crash at Richmond to finish 14th, good enough to keep him in the top 5 in points through 3 races. Midway through the race at Atlanta, Jeremy Mayfield lost an engine, leaving oil on the track. This caused Ted Musgrave and Rusty Wallace to spin, collecting Craven in the mess. The bad luck left him with a 35th place finish. Craven's raw speed helped him to a second-place qualifying effort for the Trans-South Financial 400 at Darlington, but he was in the wrong place at the wrong time during the race when Robert Presley went around, collecting Craven in the process. The hard accident relegated Craven to a 40th place finish and sent Presley to the hospital. Craven left Darlington 18th in the standings, but unfortunately his bad luck had yet to peak.
During the first practice session at the new Texas Motor Speedway on Thursday, Craven hit the wall several times out of 4 before coming to a rest on the front stretch. Safety crews had to help Craven from the car, who was put onto a stretcher and transported to a local hospital. He was listed in serious but stable condition with a fractured right shoulder and a brain bleed. He was expected to stay in the hospital for at least 72 hours, so the team tapped Busch Series points leader Todd Bodine to drive the number 25 car in Craven's place. The incident came 2 weeks after Truck Series driver John Nemechek died after he suffered massive brain injuries in a crash at Homestead. Craven was released from the hospital on Sunday as Bodine took the number 25 car to a 25th place finish at Texas. Craven missed the race the following week at Bristol as Truck Series points leader and Hendrick driver Jack Sprague finished 40th. Craven's time away from the track turned tragic as his maternal grandfather passed away and his father suffered a stroke. Craven's therapy with Carolina Panthers trainer Walt Beaver allowed him to return to the Cup Series after only a 2-race absence. He returned at Martinsville with a 22nd place finish. The following few races saw Craven continue to struggle, leaving Charlotte 34th in points. He seemed to get stronger slowly but surely as the season rolled on. Over the next 13 races, Craven picked up 11 top 20 finishes, highlighted by a 9th in the inaugural race at California Speedway. He earned 4 top 10s over the next 6 races, topped off by a 3rd at Rockingham. He finished the season 19th in points, despite missing those 2 races early in the season. This once again was a career best season, notching career highs in top 5s, top 10s, average finish, and he earned his highest finish in the Winston Cup standings.
Once again, Craven looked to the start of the season as a chance for his first Winston Cup victory and an opportunity to battle for the championship. But with another season came another small change for the driver. Budweiser, who became the official beer of NASCAR, changed Craven's car number from 25 to 50 to honor NASCAR's 50th anniversary season with the intent of going back to number 25 in 1999. After the first 3 races of the season, Craven found himself 14th in points. The following weekend, the Winston Cup Series headed to Atlanta for the Primestar 500. The parallels between Craven and Park's careers were about to align as both drivers faced some career-altering turmoil at almost the exact same time. Stay tuned for Part 2, coming out Sunday, May 10th, 2020. Please take a moment to subscribe to our channel, and as always, thanks for watching.